In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, we often speak of the martyrs who die on the battlefield. We praise the space marines who fall to bolter fire, and the countless guardsmen who are crushed beneath the treads of alien war engines. But there is a different kind of death in the Warhammer 40K universe. A death that does not come from the screaming teeth of a chainsaw, but from a quiet, suffocating whisper. It is a slow, agonizing execution of the soul itself. Welcome to the hidden, psychological nightmare of the Imperial Interrogator. To the uninitiated, the Inquisition represents absolute and yielding authority, wielding the power of life and death over entire star systems. You might look at a fully ordained Inquisitor and see a terrifying god of judgment, a ruthless protector of humanity. But to become that god, one must first serve as an interrogator, the apprentice, the torturer, and ironically, the ultimate victim. It is a path paved not with glory, but with the shattered remnants of one's own sanity. Consider this, the true horror of being an Imperial Interrogator in Warhammer 40K lore isn't the physical act of inflicting pain upon the guilty. It is the crushing, inescapable burden of the truth they are forced to extract. They are the individuals who must step into the darkest, most isolated cells of the galaxy. They must stare directly into the manic eyes of the heretic, the mutant, and the demon worshipper, peeling back the layers of a corrupted mind to absorb the poison that rots within. Imagine forcing yourself to understand the twisted logic of a chaos cultist just enough to break them, knowing that every dark secret you uncover leaves an indelible stain on your own soul. The interrogator wields the physical instruments of torture, yes, but in doing so, they become the anvil upon which their own humanity is hammered into dust. They must willingly drink the poison of the warp to synthesize a cure, sacrificing their own purities that the Imperium might live just one more day. This is the agonizing reality of standing in the Inquisition shadow. If you are prepared to descend into the absolute darkest psychological depths of the Warhammer 40K universe, to witness how a loyal human mind shatters under the unbearable weight of cosmic horror, then hit that subscribe button, like this video, and brace yourself. We are about to unlock the deepest cell doors and step directly into the shattering mind of an Imperial Interrogator. How does one even begin this agonizing journey? It does not start with a grand ceremony or a noble volunteering of one's life. It begins with a silent observation. An Inquisitor spots a spark of terrifying competence in an Adeptus Arbites Enforcer, a brilliant Schola Progenium cadet, or a relentless Underhive survivor. They do not offer an invitation, they issue an unspoken command. You are plucked from your mundane existence, your past effectively erased in the span of a single heartbeat. You belong to the Holy Orders now. To be an interrogator is to walk eternally in the suffocating shadow of a master. Your Inquisitor is not merely a teacher or a commanding officer. They are a living, breathing god of absolute judgment. You watch them condemn entire worlds with a flick of a stylized quill. You see them burn nobles and peasants alike with terrifying, clinical indifference. And you realize, with a chilling certainty, that this cold, unforgiving statue of Imperial authority is exactly what you are expected to become. Consider the sheer magnitude of the isolation required for this dark transformation. You are systematically severed from normal humanity. You cannot maintain friendships, for any emotional attachment is a glaring vulnerability a demon or a rebel could exploit. You cannot have a family, because your bloodline would instantly be used as leverage by the very cults you are tasked to hunt. Your only companions are fellow acolytes, ruthless rivals who would eagerly step over your executed corpse if you show even a fraction of hesitation. The training itself is less about acquiring esoteric knowledge and more about the systematic dismantling of your innate empathy. A standard human mind naturally recoils at the sight of extreme suffering. It is a biological, evolutionary survival mechanism. But an interrogator must learn to watch a human being flayed alive, not with horror, but with calculated precision. You are trained to measure the exact pitch of a victim's scream, calibrating it to deduce whether a heretic is desperately lying or finally breaking. This is where the true, irreversible psychological conditioning takes root. The Inquisitor forces you to violently discard your traditional moral compass. Good and evil quickly become abstract, completely useless concepts in your daily life. There is only purity, and there is corruption. You are taught that an innocent life is utterly meaningless if it poses even a microscopic risk to the Emperor's realm. You must internalize the horrific mathematical equation of the Inquisition. 1 billion innocent deaths is a strategic triumph if it successfully stops a single demon. Now, imagine the crushing mental toll of carrying this perspective every waking second of your life. You walk through the crowded, neon-lit streets of a bustling hive city, and you no longer see ordinary citizens. You see potential vectors of warp infection. You look at a laughing child and automatically calculate the statistical probability of them developing unsanctioned psychic mutations. Paranoia is no longer a flaw in your psyche. It is the fundamental baseline of your survival. To trust is to die, and constant, agonizing doubt is your only shield. You have been successfully forged into a weapon. You are a finely sharpened blade wielded by the unseen hand of your master. But a blade has no feelings, no regrets, and no soul of its own. As you prepare to conduct your very first independent interrogation, you catch your reflection in the hardened steel of your tools and realize a terrifying truth. The person you were before the Inquisition took you is already dead. Now, all that remains is the interrogator, waiting to plunge into the abyss. The heavy iron door of the interrogation chamber clangs shut behind you, sealing you in a tomb of your own making. In the center of the room, strapped to an arcane device of suffering, sits a fanatic. They do not fear you. They do not fear the pain you are about to inflict, because their mind is already anchored to a reality far more terrifying than any physical torment. This is your battlefield. You begin the standard procedures. The excruciators are applied. Flesh burns, bones splinter, and blood paints the sterile floor. Yet, the fanatic only laughs, whispering litanies to the ruinous powers. You quickly realize that physical agony is a blunt, useless instrument against a soul already promised to the warp. To truly break them, you must dismantle their belief system. You must enter their mind. This is where the true peril of the interrogator lies. To dismantle a heresy, you must first comprehend it. You must listen to the blasphemous texts, study the forbidden geometries of their summoning circles, and understand the core, twisted logic that drove a seemingly rational human being to worship the primordial annihilator. You have to learn the language of madness. Consider the terrifying implications of this requirement. The human brain is a sponge, naturally wired to seek patterns and internalize information. Every time you force a cultist to explain the chaotic revelations they received in the dark, you are downloading a fragment of that corruption directly into your own consciousness. You cannot unhear the seductive whispers of Slaanesh or the brutally simple truths of Khorne. It begins with a dangerous necessity, empathy. Not compassion, but tactical empathy. To find the flaw in a heretic's armor, you must momentarily adopt their worldview. You must force your mind to see the Imperium as they see it, a stagnant, decaying corpse empire built on endless suffering and hypocritical dogma. For a fleeting second, their rebellion must make logical sense to you, and in that fleeting second, the seed is planted. The warp does not require absolute devotion to take root. It only requires a single moment of agreement, a microscopic crack in the fortress of your faith. You rationalize it, of course. You tell yourself that you are merely analyzing the enemy, maintaining a clinical distance from the spiritual rot. But the warp is a living, breathing contagion. Day after day, you descend into the dungeons. You break a Genasteel Omegas and learn the horrifying serenity of the hive mind, feeling a ghost of the psychic embrace they describe. You shatter its ancient sorcerer, but not before they plant a paradox in your mind, a riddle of fate that you cannot stop trying to solve in the dead of night. The mental compartmentalization you were taught begins to fail. The walls between your unshakable faith and the undeniable, horrifying truths of the universe grow thin. You begin to realize that the heretics aren't always lying. Sometimes, the demons they commune with offer insights that contradict the rigid, censored history of the ecclesiarchy. The truth is a weapon, and it is cutting you to pieces. Consider the audio recordings you must review. Hours of distorted, box-captured screams that slowly morph into impossible, multi-layered core arrangements of demonic entities. You play them backward and forward, isolating frequencies to find hidden codes. The sound burrows into your auditory cortex. Soon, you hear those same impossible harmonies in the hum of the ship's engines, or in the rhythmic breathing of your own sleeping quarters. It is a profound, horrifying irony. To defeat the enemy, you must love the enemy's knowledge. You must hoard their forbidden grimoires, preserve their cursed artifacts in stasis fields, and memorize their profane rituals. You become a living library of damnation. You know more about the dark gods than the most devout, ignorant planetary governor, making you simultaneously the Imperium's greatest shield and its most catastrophic liability. You start to notice the changes in your own behavior. You catch yourself murmuring the dark litanies you extracted just to test the rhythm of the syllables. You find yourself gazing into the flickering flames of a brazier, instinctively looking for the shapes and signs the chaos worshippers claimed to see. The abyss is no longer just a concept. It is staring back at you. This is the phenomenon known as psychological assimilation. The more you immerse yourself in the chaotic mindset to destroy it, the more your own neurochemistry aligns with the madness. You are fighting a war against an enemy that uses your own intellect and curiosity as an infection vector. You cannot scrub your brain with promethium. The taint is etched into your very memories. Worse still is the numbing of your own soul. The first time you execute a heretic, your hands might shake. By the 100th time, you feel absolutely nothing. But nature abhors vacuum. As your human empathy is systematically burned away by the Inquisition's mandate, that empty space is eagerly filled by the cold, calculating cruelty of the warp. You become the monster to fight the monster. You are walking a razor-thin wire suspended over a sea of screaming souls. Lean too far toward ignorance, and you fail the Inquisition, leaving dangerous cults intact. Lean too far toward understanding, and you fall into the very heresy you are sworn to eradicate. There is no safe middle ground. There is only the agonizing, prolonged struggle to delay the inevitable fall. Eventually, the physical toll manifests alongside the mental collapse. Your sleep is plagued by vivid, hyper-realistic nightmares where you are the one strapped to the interrogation chair, and the Emperor himself is applying the tortures. You wake up screaming, your hands instinctively reaching for the purity seals on your armor, terrified that they might burn your own skin. You have successfully broken the unbreakable heretic. Their mind is a ruin, their secrets laid bare for the Inquisition to act upon. You have won the battle. But as you look at your blood-stained hands and feel the cold, alien thoughts echoing in your own skull, you understand the horrifying cost. The fanatic is dead, but a part of their madness now lives forever inside you. If you are fascinated by these dark, psychological depths of Warhammer 40K, and you want to continue exploring the tragic sacrifices made in the name of the Emperor, ensure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep decoding the most horrifying secrets of the Grimdark universe. Now, let us witness what happens when these fractured minds are pushed beyond the point of no return. The transition from internal psychological infection to external madness is rarely a sudden event. It is a slow, insidious leap, a poison seeping into your perception. The corruption you absorb from the minds of the damned begins to project outward, painting reality in the grotesque colors of the war. You look round the inquisitorial fortress, once a bastion of absolute security, and you begin to see the mirror of madness reflecting back at you from every polished surface. It begins with the paranoia, not the calculated suspicion taught during your early days as an acolyte, but a crippling, suffocating dread that paralyzes your waking moments. Every shadowed corridor suddenly hides a genestealer assassin. Every whispered conversation between the ship's ratings is interpreted as a coded transmission to the ruinous powers. You stop eating, convinced your rations are laced with mutant spores. You stop sleeping, terrified that your unguarded dreams are a gateway for demonic incursion. To combat this suffocating dread, many interrogators turn to desperate rituals of physical purification. The psychological trauma manifests as an obsessive need to cleanse the body, attempting to scrub away the invisible taint clinging to the soul. You spend hours locked in the ablution chambers, using harsh chemical abrasives until your skin is raw and bleeding. But no amount of holy water or burning promethium can wash away the horrific sins committed in the name of the Emperor. This obsessive need for purity often escalates into systematic self-mutilation. You begin to view your own flesh as a weak vector for chaos, a liability that must be strictly disciplined. To anchor your fracturing mind, you carve bloody wards of protection directly into your skin. You staple heavy purity seals onto your chest, welcoming the agonizing pain of boiling wax as a righteous distraction from the whispering voices in your skull. Your body becomes a mutilated tapestry. Yet, your master Inquisitor rarely intervenes. They watch your agonizing descent with clinical detachment, measuring your capacity to continue functioning while broken. They survived this very process themselves, because despite your unraveling mind, you are still expected to perform your sacred duties. You are still required to make decisions that will violently end thousands of human lives. And this is where the true, waking nightmare of the interrogator reaches its devastating peak. Imagine standing before a tactical cogitator, reviewing the atmospheric data of a densely populated hablock. Among billions of data points, you have found the single and verified thread of a potential chaos cult. In the past, when your mind was intact, you might have dispatched an extraction team. Now, driven by the frantic logic of your shattered, paranoid mind, you cannot risk even a microsecond of hesitation. The threat is magnified 1,000-fold by the lens of your trauma. You simply order the entire sector purged in atomic fire. With the depression of a single room, you condemn 1 million innocent souls to be reduced to ash. You do not order this mass execution out of righteous, emperor-fearing zeal. You order it out of sheer, paralyzing terror. You are so utterly frightened of the shadows you have studied that you are willing to burn down the entire house just to ensure not a single insect survives. The most agonizing part is the inevitable aftermath. You are often required to walk through the smoldering ruins of the lives you extinguished, verifying the kill. You look into the soot-stained eyes of a dying citizen, someone who screamed their loyalty to the Golden Throne until their vocal cords melted. In their fading gaze, you do not see the peaceful glow of a religious martyr willingly giving their life for the greater good of humanity. You see only pure, unadulterated horror. They look up at you, the Emperor's chosen instrument of divine justice, exactly as they would look at a bloodthirsty demon from the war. In that silent moment, the mirror finally shatters. You realize that you can no longer distinguish between your holy mandate and the manic cruelty of the archenemy. The line separating the righteous hunter from the monstrous predator has vanished completely, leaving you entirely alone in the dark. Why does the Imperium tolerate this descent into madness? To a rational observer, this brutal methodology seems completely counterproductive. a tragic waste of the most resilient minds humanity has to offer. Why would the Emperor's most elite organization systematically destroy the sanity of its own future leaders? The answer lies not in malice, but in the horrifying, cold-blooded mathematics of survival in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. The Imperium of man is not fighting a conventional war of borders, economies, or natural resources. It is fighting an unending, existential war against the literal manifestation of nightmare. A single, unchecked, chaotic thought can tear reality apart and doom an entire planetary system. Therefore, the Inquisition cannot afford the luxury of psychological preservation. They desperately need weapons that have already been broken, because what is already fractured cannot be easily shattered by the sheer terror of the enemy. Consider the Interrogator's shattered mind as a horrific but necessary crucible. A sane, balanced human mind is terribly fragile. A sane mind looks upon the impossible, multidimensional anatomy of a greater demon and snaps instantly, overwhelmed by the paradox. But a mind that has already been meticulously dismantled and brutally rebuilt in the fires of prolonged trauma, that mind can stare directly into the howling abyss, hold its ground, and calmly pull the trigger. This is the grim, unavoidable price of purity. In the Warhammer 40K universe, true purity is not synonymous with innocence. In fact, the Inquisition views innocence as nothing more than a dangerous, unexploited vulnerability waiting to be breached. True purity is a heavily scarred, calloused soul that has waded through the deepest fires of hell. It is a mind that has tasted the poison of the warp and chosen to keep fighting, driven not by noble hope, but by spite and absolute terror. The most agonizing tragedy of this process is that the Interrogator completely understands it. In their fleeting, quiet moments of painful lucidity, they comprehend the monstrous transaction they're a part of. They are fully aware that their soul is damned. No matter the outcome, they are willingly burning their own humanity for fuel, offering their sanity as a quiet and celebrated blood sacrifice so that billions of oblivious citizens can live in blissful ignorance for just one more day. Your Master Inquisitor watches this internal immolation not with pity, but with a cold, calculating approval. They are not looking to mentor a well-adjusted pupil to carry on a heroic, shining legacy. They are looking for a hardened survivor who has proven they can swallow the venom of the archenemy and still spit acid in return. If you can endure this absolute mental disintegration without turning your blade against the golden throne, you are finally deemed ready for the ultimate test. The decades of psychological torment, the physical self-mutilation, and the slow erosion of your humanity eventually culminate in a single, unannounced moment. There is no grand graduation ceremony for an Imperial Interrogator. There is only the final trial. It is not a formal examination written on parchment, but a brutal, sudden assessment orchestrated by your Master Inquisitor to determine if the weapon they forged is finally ready, or if it has become too dangerous to wield. This final trial is deliberately designed to test the exact depth of your spiritual corruption. Your Master knows you are tainted. It is impossible to do this job and remain pure. The question is whether you still control the taint, or if the taint now controls you. They are measuring the microscopic distance between your current state and full, unrecoverable heresy. It is the razor-thin, deadly line separating a righteous Puritan from a dangerous radical. Consider this terrifying scenario. Over the years, you might have started utilizing captured chaos artifacts or unsanctioned psychic techniques, genuinely believing you were doing it for the greater good of the Imperium. You convinced yourself that you possessed the supreme willpower to harness the archenemy's tools without falling to their whispers. But your Master Inquisitor sees the absolute truth. They recognize the arrogant, fatal hubris that always precedes a catastrophic, system-wide demonic incursion. If you are judged to have crossed that invisible line into radicalism, there will be no grand trial before the High Lords. There will be no opportunity to passionately defend your brutal methods. Your execution will be devastatingly swift and entirely silent. It will likely be a single bolt round to the back of your head, fired in a dark, empty corridor by the very mentor to whom you sacrificed your entire mortal soul. But what if you have not turned to heresy? What if your mind has simply, quietly shattered under the immense, crushing weight of the war? If your sanity finally snaps, leaving you weeping, paranoid wreck incapable of making cold, strategic decisions, death would be a profound mercy. Unfortunately, the Inquisition is notoriously conservative with its resources. A broken interrogator still possesses a wealth of highly classified knowledge that cannot be allowed to die. Instead of the Emperor's peace, you are subjected to the horrifying fate of lobotomy. You are violently stripped of your authority and physically hardwired into the Inquisition's cybernetic infrastructure. You become a servitor. Your agonizing memories of demonic horrors are brutally suppressed by neural inhibitors. But the deep, primal terror permanently remains. You spend the rest of your unnatural life as a mindless, drooling drone, perhaps mindlessly scrubbing the blood from the very interrogation cells you once commanded. Now imagine the rarest outcome of all. You actually survive the final trial. You have stared directly into the shrieking abyss of the war, absorb the darkest, most maddening secrets of the universe, and remain steadfastly loyal to the Golden Throne. Your Master Inquisitor nods in grim satisfaction and formally pins the adamantine inquisitorial reset to your heavily scarred chest. You are granted absolute, unquestionable authority over the lives of trillions of Imperial citizens. You have achieved the ultimate goal, but at what horrifying cost? As you look down at the symbol of your newly acquired absolute power, you realize the devastating truth. You have survived the fire, but your human soul is nothing more than a burned-out, hollow husk. You are no longer a mortal man or woman. You are a cold, calculating god of judgment, eternally trapped in a self-made prison of paranoia, utterly and completely alone in the dark. To truly understand the tragic existence of an Imperial Interrogator, we must fundamentally reframe how we view their service. This is not a conventional career path. It is not a military deployment, nor is it a strategic political ascension. It is, at its absolute core, an act of profound, agonizing worship. The highest form of devotion in the Warhammer 40K universe is not found in singing holy hymns in an ecclesiarchy cathedral. It is found in the willingness to completely obliterate your own soul so that others might retain theirs. Consider the horrifying reality of the Golden Throne of Terror. We know that the Emperor is sustained by the daily sacrifice of thousands of unsanctioned psychers, their life force violently drained to power the Astronomicon and keep the warp at bay. The Interrogator performs a very similar, yet entirely undocumented, silent sacrifice. While the psychers surrender their physical bodies to the machinery of the throne, the Interrogator willingly feeds their sanity, their morality, and their humanity into the grinding gears of the Inquisition. Both are nothing more than flesh fuel for the Imperium's desperate survival. There is a suffocating, poetic tragedy in their isolated existence. They are the absolute ultimate shield, the final barrier protecting the oblivious citizens of the Imperium from the cosmic horrors of the Dark Universe. Yet, if those very citizens were to truly see an interrogator, if they could look into their shattered mind and witness the demonic secrets hoarded within, they would instantly cry out for the interrogator to be burned at the stake. They are universally despised and feared by the exact people they are sacrificing everything to protect. Now, I want you to reconsider everything you thought you knew about the Holy Inquisition. They are not merely an organization of sadistic, arrogant tyrants reveling in torture, political maneuvering, and unchecked power. They are, in truth, an order of the damned. They are a brotherhood of tragic, self-made monsters, forged out of sheer, inescapable necessity in a galaxy that actively wants to consume us. They commit the absolute unthinkable on a daily basis because the alternative is the immediate, agonizing extinction of the human species. Their terrifying cruelty is a heavy, cursed mantle they willingly bear so that the innocent do not have to. As the last remnants of their human empathy burn away in the fires of interrogation, something else takes its place. It is a cold, blinding light of pure, ruthless intent. It is an inner astronomicon, fueled entirely by the ashes of their former self. They no longer feel joy, sadness, or genuine compassion. They are sustained solely by a monstrous, unyielding devotion to the master of mankind. They become a living extension of his divine wrath, hollowed out and filled only with his brutal purpose. In the end, the veteran interrogator wins their brutal, silent war against the archenemy. They successfully extract the forbidden truth. They break the mind of the heretic, and they protect their assigned sector from an insidious demonic corruption. But they win this perpetual war by offering up the very thing that dark gods of chaos truly desire: their own innocent humanity. They have successfully and permanently traded their mortal soul for the preservation of the Emperor's realm, leaving behind only a flawlessly sharpened weapon in the shape of a human being. The next time you see an Imperial Inquisitor, look closely past the ornate power armor, the ancient weaponry, and the glowing rosette of absolute authority. Look directly into their eyes. You will not find the burning, passionate fire of a righteous crusader. Instead, you will find the cold, dead stare of a silent watcher. It is the gaze of someone who has stared into the screaming abyss for so long that the abyss finally hollowed them out, leaving nothing but a walking monument to necessary cruelty. They are the terrifying monsters we deliberately created to fight the monsters lurking in the dark. The Imperial Interrogator walks a path of guaranteed damnation, voluntarily breaking their own mind so that humanity might live in blissful, ignorant safety for just a little while longer. Their tragedy is the ultimate reflection of the Warhammer 40K universe itself, a grimdark reality where survival is never a triumph of hope, but rather a grueling, blood-soaked transaction paid exclusively in the currency of human souls. What are your thoughts on the horrifying psychological toll of the Inquisition? Do you believe their monstrous methods are entirely justified by the cosmic horrors they face? Or are they simply accelerating the Imperium's inevitable rotting decay? Let me know your perspective in the comments below. If you want to continue exploring the darkest, most tragic corners of Warhammer 40K lore, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Until next time, beware the whispers in the dark, and remember, innocence proves nothing.